Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, and hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio out of New York. I am Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and our show today is The Art of Creating Mental Health Wealth. And I love doing this show. We've got a wonderful co-host. She's a dear friend, and she is changing the world. It's Janetta Barry and the Epiphany Process. Let's welcome her to the program. Hi, Janetta.
Hey, Dr. Jacqueline, and hello, everybody out there. It's wonderful to be back again this week and to be sharing so much with you, Dr. Jacqueline. I just love this platform and what it's creating and where it's getting to. It's inspiring.
Well, thank you so much. And I love doing this program with you. We just had a nice chat backstage about all the things that are going on, and a guest who's going to be forthcoming. Actually, I see she's backstage now, which is great. So, Janetta, before we bring her out, I want to spotlight you for people who are joining us for the first time. If you can share a little bit about your story, and of course, we have a clip to play as well. But what is the Epiphany Process, and what should people know about it?
Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Yes, the Epiphany Process is a process that I created over a period of time 17 years ago. And it was born through my greatest life test, something that I, at the time when it happened, never believed I'd be able to get through. And what happened was one day, my 16-year-old daughter and I escalated into an enormous argument where I was laying safekeeping house rules because she was breaking them left, right, and center. She stormed off to pack and leave home and said she couldn't do this. And I went to kind of check up on her because I sensed something wasn't quite right. And I found her in her bathroom where she had taken her life. And it was devastating. Everything, my whole life, in every single part of my life went to ground zero. My marriage, my youngest daughter, we were living in a country that allowed a 12-year-old at that time to decide which parent to live with. And monetarily, everything, my home, I lost everything. It was such an interesting time of my life, very painful. And I really got to a point where I thought I'd never get through it. And till I was crossing the road one day and realized that I'd forgotten I had choice. And having safely, somehow, I don't know how I did it, having got to the other side of that road, I then decided I'd start researching and studying very intensely to find a way to accurately get through the shock. You know, there was PTSD with that, the grieving, the loss on so many levels, not just the loss of my daughter, and that I would get through that. And I did. And it's turned out to be an incredibly successful and accurate process. And I've been able to help people all over the world, whether it's with day-to-day challenges or right through to deep PTSD. I've helped people get through terrorist attacks and the fallout that happens with those. And people who are with eating disorders. I'm at the moment working with a family with 3 autistic boys who are 14 and younger, helping the parents with that. It's just such an amazing process that can help people in so many ways.
Thank you so much, Janetta. And I just have to let our audience know that on one of our programs, someone did reach out and contacted you and is doing much better.
Yes, absolutely. And hers was a bereavement reach out, and really at a place where she thought she couldn't move on, and she has, and very successfully telling people about how to move on themselves as well, which I just love as well.
I love that too. And we do have your contact information for anyone who's going through a hard time and wants to reach out to Janetta. If you're listening on the radio and you can't see the banner, you can go to one of her two websites, theepiphanyprocess.com and worldjennysday.com.
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to, before we go over to our very special guest, just to touch on worldjennysday.com so you know what it's about. And that basically is that Jenny, my 16-year-old daughter, died on World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October. And I know our guest coming up, that's a very precious date as well. We'll share that a bit later. But we now have World Jenny's Day on World Mental Health Day, 10th of October, where we use theatre and the arts to start normalizing conversations around depression and suicide. And our guest coming up is very much on the same wavelength with all of this. And so, Dr. Jacqueline, I'll move over to introducing Bollywood dance, mindfulness, and meditation teacher, TEDx speaker, TV and radio interviewer, Shalini Bala Lucas. And she has her own website, Just June, where she does amazing work. And I had the honor of meeting Shalini actually last month whilst I was in Kenya. And she invited me to be on her Capital FM show, Mindfulness, Music and More. And we just hit it off because there was so much in common. And Shalini, the fact that she does Bollywood dancing really brought in the fact that she identified where World Jenny's Day uses theatre and the arts to soften the conversations around depression and suicide and even bereavement. And so Shalini has had TV appearances on BBC, ITV, Channel 4, and on the Kenyan television network KTN, as well as being featured in publications such as HuffPost, Red Magazine, and Top Santi. And she's discussed in all these forums the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being through dance and mindfulness. And I know she's going to share with us a little bit later her path of where her greatest life test and the loss of somebody so very close to her got her onto this path too. So with not much more ado, I would like to invite and introduce to you, Dr. Jacqueline, and to all our listeners on the radio side and our viewers, Shalini Bala Lucas. Welcome, Shalini.
Welcome to USA Global TV. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me all the way from Kenya.
We can hear you. You look great. You sound great.
Thank you. It's so hot here. It's so hot. So I'm trying to keep cool.
And I'm sitting here. This is the joys of Africa. I'm sitting here. I've moved Shalini down to South Africa, and my daughter actually had a baby this week. And I'm sitting in this house with, you probably don't know this, Dr. Jacqueline, but South Africa has load shedding because there's not enough power for the whole country. So they shut off the power. Even the traffic lights, everything shuts down for certain times of the day for long periods of time. And fortunately, I'm in a house with a very powerful generator. So if you hear this thud in the background, it's the generator. It's Africa for you.
Yeah, I always say if we disappear, it means our Wi-Fi is gone, our data is gone, electric power is gone. So bear with us.
So how far apart are the two of you in terms of time?
So I'm in Kenya, and probably an hour, probably an hour's time difference, I think, Janetta.
Yeah, an hour's time difference. Yeah. Yes, so you're 3 hours ahead of UK, and I'm 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm
here.
You're here. Okay, so Shalini, it's wonderful to have you on the show, and I thought we'd start the ball rolling with you sharing where you started on your path of bereavement and how dance helped you through that, and where you've been able to help others through it.
Yeah, sure. I think dance has been part of my life since I was 3 years old. And I have photographs of me dancing on stage at 3 years old. And I was the center of attention. And I have older dancers all around me. And I loved being on stage, and I loved performing and music and dressing up and just that whole movement. So I danced from the age of 3. And I did my graduation in a South Indian classical dance at the age of 16. So I've carried it all through my life. But actually, I stopped dancing at the age of about 20 when I went to the UK and I met my husband, Jeremy, my partner then. And I just stopped dancing. And it's interesting what an impact that played on me, because when I met Jeremy, I also went through an estrangement with my family for 12 years and went through huge depression. And it was as a result of that depression, I came back to dance. And I started teaching dance in my local community in Surrey in England. And dance really brought me out of depression. And so Jeremy and I were together for 19 years, and I'll tell you a little bit about what happened later. But when he died from cancer. The first thing I turned to again was dance. I turned to going back to teaching my dance classes. So Jeremy died in July, and in September, the first thing I did was to go back to teaching my dance classes, teaching adults Just June, which is a Bollywood dance style, fitness dance style. And I would say that it was one of the things that brought me back to some kind of normality and really helped with my mental health.
Thanks for sharing that. Just a question I had, was it the dance instruction or performing the dance that really had the most impact?
So I used to, until the age of 18, I was a performer. And then I stopped dancing. And then when I was actually hospitalized with depression for about a month, and it was whilst I was in hospital, I was in my it was 2002, so late in my early 30s. And one day this is going to show my age. Jeremy brought to the hospital a cassette player and a cassette. So that's showing my age. And I played this cassette, and it was a beautiful invocation to the god Krishna. Krishna is an Indian mythological figure, and I'm not Hindu by any means, but this song spoke to me. And I remember standing up in my small room in this hospital and dancing to this beautiful 3-minute piece of music. And for the first time in months, I felt alive again. And I felt like that movement and that song and that just being able, showing the flute, Krishna plays the flute, and showing his peacock feather in his hair and things like that. And he was a cowherd, so showing the cows. So just bringing that out, telling a story made me feel alive again. And so that was very much a performance, but it was an internal performance. I had stopped performing on stage for many years, but it was an internal performance, which was more important. When I came out of hospital and realized I didn't want to go back to my 9-to-5 job, I went to work in an art center, and I was surrounded by creativity, singers and musicians and artists. And I had the space, and I was lucky I had a very nice boss who said, use this space, use this dance studio to practice your dance. So I did. And it was for me, again, it was very much an internal dance practice. And then I realized that I wanted to teach this to other people, so many people suffering from mental health issues. And so I started teaching children first in schools, and then adults as well. And for me, it then became very much about teaching. As much as dancing gives me pleasure, the act of actually teaching somebody and seeing people with grief and depression and family issues come to the class for just an hour a week. And for an hour, it's about them. They can express themselves. They dance, they move, they listen to the music, they're moved by the music. And for that hour, it's just about them. That joy that I see on their faces feeds me. It really nourishes me. And I think also dance is so mindful. You can't think about the shopping and the cooking and the children, because you have to focus on your feet, your hands, your face, everything. And so it's very mindful. And I've seen people heal from dance. And so dance has healed me. and teaching that to other people has also healed me, seeing them heal.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the internal dance. I can picture that inside me right now as you were saying that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to do. I don't have any space, but otherwise, put some music and dance.
It's so true, that feeling of freedom when you're moving to music and creating. It's a story, really, an internal story that reflects outside of yourself. And some people here might know that I'm actually a ballet dancer and grew up in ballet, actually in Kenya. And I can remember from an early age, the moment I started jumping in ballet, it felt like I was weightless. And that gave me that sense of wow, everything isn't as grounded as we think it is. There is a difference in weight that's not in proportion to your weight and your jumping. And I remember thinking that from a very early age, that there's transformation that happens in dance. And that transformation I've seen time and time again, transforming one's over logicalizing and feeling over emotional as well. So I wanted to, yeah.
Go on.
Yeah.
So the fun thing for us in Bollywood dance is you can come to a class. I used to do classes Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning, Saturday morning. So some ladies would come to all three, some would come to two, some would only come to a Saturday morning, for example. And they would come to class, and one Saturday morning they would be it would be a flirty dance, flirting, and it's a kind of a very, very naughty dance. And then the second Saturday they'd come and it was much more reflective and much more lyrical. And then the next Saturday they'd come and we'd be doing a high impact Bhangra dance. Bhangra is a North Indian folk style. So, which is quite, just very much about the shoulders and stuff. So also that was the other thing, that you could come and express and be somebody else for just an hour and just be in that space in a fun, sometimes quite thoughtful way. And I think that was what I really loved to see in my ladies.
Yeah, that transformation, it is quite something. And I wanted to ask you, Shalini, something I didn't have a chance to ask you when we did get together, and we're still going to have an amazing meetup, probably in June if you're free and around then. But with you having gone through that depression before Jeremy passed, and having lost Jeremy, obviously that depression and that sense of loss is something we don't wish on anybody, and is quite daunting to deal with. So this is not marginalizing for any of our viewers or listeners out there, that going through this is easy. It isn't. It's the most painful, difficult thing to go through. But what would you say you got out of having gone through your depression and having lost Jeremy that would be missing in your life now if you hadn't had those challenges? What have those challenges given you, and where have they brought you today?
So the first thing was with the depression, I then turned to mindfulness, because in the hospital they taught us meditation. And it was interesting, when I came out of hospital, I couldn't do anything. I would be exhausted, because depression is like this, for me, it was like this gray cloud around my head all the time. So even taking a shower, getting out of bed, it was just exhausting. So when I came out of hospital, having learned some coping strategies, one thing I did was every afternoon, I would go to this art center, work for 2-3 hours, come back exhausted, and I would make myself a cup of tea on the stove, like I saw my mom do it, Indian style, chai. And I would boil the water, and then I'd put spices, tea leaves, milk, sugar, let it all boil up, and then strain it. And that was like a 15-20 minute process. And then I would pour the tea, strain it into a mug, and then sit in the conservatory just drinking my cup of tea. And what I didn't realize was I was practicing mindfulness. I was being mindful of the tea making and the tea drinking. And I then came across Deepak Chopra's 21-day mindfulness thing, and I did that online. And I was just blown away by how it really helped me. So I turned to mindfulness in a big way, and I actually then became an accredited teacher in the UK. And mindfulness then became a way of life for me. and it helped me keep on an even keel. So every time I felt like I was going through that depression, and when Jeremy was diagnosed with cancer in 2014, he also started practicing mindfulness and meditating. And I think without that depression, I wouldn't have found mindfulness. And without his diagnosis, we wouldn't have found that connection through meditation and mindfulness that we found in the last 2 years of his life. When he died in 2016, I didn't turn to mindfulness straight away. I just couldn't. I was in such a dark place. It was so horrific. It was so devastating. All I could think about was actually suicide. I was very suicidal. But I had already committed to teaching my ladies in September dancing. So that's why I started that. And thank God I had, because that became a lifeline. As my energy began to clear, I turned to mindfulness again. So for me, mindfulness, and don't forget, I do say dance is a mindful activity as well, as is running or being on a bike in the gym, for example, any kind of exercise, Tai Chi, etc. So for me, mindfulness and learning about mindfulness and learning about being is something that came out of my depression and out of my bereavement. And perhaps one of the things that came out of my bereavement, and I always say it's really sad that you have to go through such a tragic thing, because it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, to learn these life lessons, which I believe is my journey and my soul journey, but to learn the lesson that life is short. Oh, hell, it's short. And you have to live every day and every moment fully and compassionately and with an open heart. I can't say I did that straight away. When Jeremy died, I closed up. I actually went really deep into depression and darkness and wanted to, and I say this, and I whoever's listening, please hold yourself in compassion when I talk about this, but I did have suicidal ideation. But it was at my father's funeral 18 months after Jeremy died that I realized I wanted to live again. And when I made that decision, I really opened my heart. And the lesson I had learned from both Jeremy's death and my father's death is that life is short, it's precious, live it full, live it big, because it might not be long. So those are the two lessons, I think: mindfulness, being present, and living in the moment and living big.
Yeah, I really like that, because that is where it does bring us into the state of presence and grace. And I've seen it time and time again. One of the things that I noticed when I lost Jenny, and we looking at hindsight on, is that really that loss has put me into my life purpose. And I had been searching for that life purpose for forever, wondering really where it truly was. I'd try this and I'd try that, and it was useful and helpful. But now in my greatest loss, I sit in that place of thanking her every single day, because the depth and the breadth of what this whole thing has brought, you can hardly put it into words. And I do believe that when one, and I can hear you doing the same, when one can start seeing that what would be missing if those losses and challenges hadn't been there, makes a huge difference. I know you, Dr. Jacqueline, you and I have talked similar before as well on these levels.
Yes, absolutely. Shalini, thank you so much for sharing your story. Question I have for people who are watching and listening is, how would you say, you mentioned you opened your heart. How would you say the closing of your heart and depression were related, if at all?
So depression is debilitating. And I think when, and bereavement more so, I was paralyzed in my grief. And you just close. Grief is, and anybody who's lost a loved one will understand this. Grief is such a personal thing. It's so universal. We all feel it in different ways. Whether you've lost somebody, or whether you've lost a job, or whether you've lost a pet, or whether you've lost your health. And if you think about it, during the last 2 years, we've all lost something through COVID, right? We've lost our freedom. We've lost our ability to leave the house. We've lost finances, we've lost job opportunities, we've lost people to COVID. So everybody's gone through this grief process, and grief closes you because it's almost like a protection mechanism. When I was suffering grief, my heart was literally, it felt like somebody was piercing it. And so the only way I could deal with that was to close up, and my heart closed as well. And I just wasn't prepared to heal. I needed to feel that grief, and I felt it in my own way, and people will feel that. But when I was ready to then live again, I had to find a way to work through that grief. You can't go around grief. There's no way. You have to work through it. You've got to go through the pain. You've got to go through all the yucky, horrible, dark stuff. And I did that. And that's when I began to open up. And there was another thing that I did when Jeremy died. A year after he died, I started writing my first book, Always With You. And it was almost like I was writing it. It was going to be my story. I was going to publish it. And then I was going to go, okay, I'm done with this world. I'm done. I want to go and meet Jeremy. I do believe in the afterlife, and I do believe I'll see him. But as I wrote it, it became very cathartic. It became a very, very cathartic process. And then as I was finishing the book, my father passed away, and my whole outlook changed. And that's when my heart began to open again. But it's also a choice. My heart closing was, I think, and my coming into myself and going really internally was my way of protecting myself. And then when I was ready to open up, that again becomes a choice. And I began to do other things to then really change my outlook of life. I hope that answered the question.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, that was wonderful. We have a comment from, I think it's a new viewer, John Dutcher. I hope I'm saying your name right. Beautiful. Thank you so much for watching and for commenting.
Yes, thank you. And welcome, John. We'd love to hear more from you as well. Shalini, what would you say would be a good way for people to move into their artistic genius? Because there are a lot of people out there who believe, I'm not artistic. I'm the accountant. I'm the scientist. I'm the this or the that or the other. And I know you and I spoke before about how when you're in your creative energy, because we're being created by the creator, and when we're in our creative energy, we're part of creation, and then we feel more at one and in tune with everything that is working with us and is challenging us. What would be your advice to people who aren't in their creative genius? What would you say would be the best way forward for them when they believe that they have not 1 ounce of creative ability in them?
So we're all energetic beings, and we're all very creative, and we're all we all have creativity in us. In fact, I'm always blown away by just how creative people are, right? You just have to go onto Google and type something in, and I'm blown away by how clever people are. And now on Instagram, I can spend ages on reels and seeing how creative people are, whether it's digitally or singing or art or writing or dancing. And I remember I had some limiting beliefs around dance after I had stopped dancing for a while, came out of a hospital with depression. And I realized that I thought to myself, I can never dance again on stage. But that's not true, actually. In my 40s, I did perform again, just before Jeremy died, actually, the year he died in February, I did. And that for me was just a limiting belief that I had to reframe. And I worked at my craft, and I realized I can be on stage. Age is not it's not a barrier. And even if you feel you can't write, I just urge you to sit down and just start journaling, because you don't know what's going to come out of that. And often when you're being creative, and I know this for me for dance and writing, I will go into a zone, and I will sometimes look back at perhaps something I've written and think, wow, did I write that? I don't even remember, because you get so into that zone. The other thing is I used to paint with acrylics, and they were the worst paintings in the world, the worst. I've not kept any of them. But it didn't matter, because I would show them to Jeremy and he'd be like, oh, that's really good. And I knew he was lying. But the fact that they gave me so much pleasure to do, it was that mindful activity. No pressure on me to perform for anyone, to show those pieces of artwork to anyone. It was just for me, gave me so much pleasure. The fact that I could spend hours creating what I was not very good, but was great for me, because in those hours I was mindful, I was in that moment, I was enjoying myself. Nobody was judging me, I wasn't judging myself. And I think that's the thing. Take the judgment away. Who cares what people think? You need to stop judging yourself. We're our own worst judges. Take that away. Do what gives you pleasure. Do what makes you happy. And be creative. We all have creativity in us.
That is so well said. Thank you for sharing that. And I want our audience members to know, to your point, don't let someone else's judgment of you and your creativity stand in the way. I know I've been told I'm a horrible singer and that I'd never get this platform off the ground, and I didn't know how to write. And I've put my first book out last year. My second one's coming out. I'm taking voice lessons. I created this platform. So you can do it, but you just have to stay focused on your intuition and finding your inner peace. So don't let anyone else derail you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, it's the limiting beliefs, right? We all have limiting beliefs, and we have to reframe them. Nobody else can do that for you. So just go out there and live life. Life is short, as I've said. Live it how you want to, fully. Be happy.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be back. We've got a lot more to cover. So we're going to watch one of my favorite clips. I think it's so relevant and meaningful. I want to thank Ian Pelham Turner and Helen Ashard for sharing this. It's the Earthshot Prize.
Ours is a world of wonder. Every day it reminds us of its beauty. It touches us, teaches us, and astounds us. But it also warns us that what we throw away does not go away. That higher temperatures mean a lot more than longer summers. That we can no longer take life as we know it for granted. We are at a unique stage in our history. Never before have we had such an awareness of what we are doing to the planet. And never before have we had the power to do something about that.
Hello and welcome back to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. Our show today is The Art of Creating Mental Health Wealth. Janetta and Shalini, welcome back.
Thank you.
I just wanted to come back in on watching that clip and thinking about volunteering. And what are your thoughts? Is volunteering a good way to channel your energy if you are feeling depressed or you are struggling?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's interesting, when I came out of as I was coming out of my grief, I'm still coming out of my grief. I think that's important to say, that grief never leaves you, and you need to constantly work at it. It just changes shape. And I created 10 I didn't create them. I turned to 10 techniques that worked for me, including mindfulness and dance and eating well. And two of them actually relevant to volunteering was altruism and compassion. So compassion for yourself, but for others as well. Because when you turn outwardly to other people and you show them compassion, there's a real, as much as you are giving others, you get back. and it's very nourishing, and it's just, there's something, you get that tenfold actually. And altruism is a big one as well. And giving to the community can be in the form of money or your time or your expertise. So for example, we set up the Jeremy Lucas Education Fund here in Kenya, in northern Kenya, where we put we're putting currently 16 children through tertiary and secondary and tertiary education, and then on to jobs. We make sure they get jobs, and some of that is financed by some of the money Jeremy left. The fact that I was able to give back to a community that had nothing, this particular community that found it really hard to send their kids to school, made me feel so much better, like I was making something. There was a legacy there for Jeremy, but I was actually just giving back. And it takes you out of your own misery. So being able to volunteer, at the moment, I'm a volunteer for an organization called Widowed and Young. It's a charity in the UK that is for people who've lost their spouses, partners, other halves from the age of 50 and below. So I was 40 when Jeremy died. So I turned to this charity, and I'm an ambassador for them, and I give them my time. And to be able to speak, the way I give my time is to do Instagram lives, because I'm in Kenya and the charity's in the UK. But to be able to do that, and people hear my story, and then I interview other people and we talk about their stories, for people to then hear that they're not alone in their grief and their bereavement, they are being understood to a certain level, gives me some peace, and I feel so much better being able to give. So volunteering is such an important part of my life. Altruism, compassion is how I feel I want to live my life now. Because I think too often we are so insular, we think so much about ourselves. And it's fine to go internally and listen to your inner voice, but when you become self-absorbed, that is not healthy. So yeah, definitely a very big part of my life.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for sharing that. Inspire other people to do the same.
Shalini, as we come towards the end of this show, very much a part of what you've just shared in the volunteering side and the mainstream work that you do, where do you see the biggest or the bigger picture of your work taking you and growing to and reaching to? What's your big ultimate long-term picture with your work?
So I was very lucky that I was in the UK with Jeremy for 19 years. I lived there for 23 years. So the conversation around mental health when I first had depression was not a lot. And I remember going into hospital thinking, I hope nobody sees me. I'm so ashamed I have depression. What is the community going to think? What if my work are going to sack me? That was a kind of mentality of having a mental health issue then. Over the years, I was very lucky. I was able to speak in the Houses of Parliament. I became a voice of the charity Mind in the UK, which is all about mental health. So I learned a lot. I studied mindfulness. I taught mindfulness. So for me, it became very much about mental health. And that is my passion. I'm a mental health advocate. I want to empower women. I want to also empower widows, because being a widow as well. When I came to Kenya 2 years ago, and I tried to get people to be interviewed on KTN about their depression or suicidal ideation or bipolar, nobody wanted to talk. There was such a stigma around mental health here in Kenya, as had been in the UK. It's just opening up in the UK. Kenya is about 10, 15 years behind that conversation. But I was very lucky to be able to then continue and to get this slot on Capital FM as a presenter for mindfulness, music, and more, where I talk to people about their life's challenges, how they keep well mentally, physically, and spiritually. And we practice meditation as well, briefly on the show. And in the last couple of years, people are really opening up because of COVID, because depression has gone through the roof, because suicide attempts have gone through the roof. And I'm getting platforms to talk about this, whether it be National Paper or Capital FM or Instagram platforms. So now that I'm here, I am now in a relationship, and I met a man called Amar. He's actually a childhood friend. We reconnected. I'm with him now. So I've decided to stay in Kenya. I've decided to put all my experience and all my knowledge to further the mental health conversation here in Kenya. I want us to be looking at mental health at policy level. I want it to be all the way down to grassroots level. That's what I want to do. So I'm very, very passionate about mental health. I want to raise awareness of what are mental health issues, what's the help you can get, and I want to reduce stigma. And I want to do that across the board. And I want to empower people from all walks of life to come forward if they need help, to seek help, to not be ashamed, to not be stigmatized.
Shalini, I'm so looking forward to, on my return to Kenya, to sitting down with you and talking inside the theatrical production, which was born in Kenya, and including some Bollywood dance into it as well, and see what we can do. Because I do believe that's where that's where the new conversations can begin. It was such a and is such a powerful production, and to get it franchised worldwide and extend it as we're franchising, it is very close to my heart. And definitely, we've mentioned this on the show before, but until recently, it's a criminal offense to attempt suicide. And not succeed. And you can even be imprisoned for it in Kenya. And it's only just, legislation has only just started to change, as you know, Shalini. And that is part of the reason, apart from tribal stigma as well, that it's so difficult to create these conversations in great parts of Africa, not just Kenya. So it's time for us, and for me, I just feel that theatre and the arts is a wonderful way to go forward, and let's extend it some more in Kenya as well as the world at large. And I really look forward to chatting some more with you on that. It'd be amazing.
Thank you. I think just to say, Kenyans are so open-hearted. They have such a great culture of music and dance and theatre, actually. So to be able to speak to them through that medium is very powerful, and especially with things like song and dance, and they love performing. So I can see that would work. I know it worked when you did it before. So it's going to be, I'm really excited, and I really am hoping to be a part of that. But yeah, it's a very exciting time in Kenya. This attempted suicide law is hopefully going to be repealed before this government goes out in August. We can only hope.
Absolutely. The fact that it's even being discussed and legislation, to me, that was a big thing. When I saw that happening, I went, yes. And even since we did Insight 3 years ago at the Kenya National Theatre, and I've returned regularly, I've noticed that conversations are softening step by step. And that's what's happening worldwide. And I can't wait to be the suffragette of that movement, and bring other suffragettes as well. So I'm so looking forward to seeing what we can co-create there.
Very exciting collaboration. And Shalini, congratulations on everything you're doing. I have so much respect for you. So keep up that great work, and please come back and see us anytime, and keep us updated. For people who want to reach out to you, we have your banner, but for people on the radio who can't read it, what's the best way to contact you, and who would you like to contact you?
Okay, so anybody who wants to hear about mental health, or also my books, they're all on Amazon if you want to know more. The best thing to do is to go to my website, which is www.justjhom.co.uk. And I'm also on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at JustJhom, JustJhom. It's the best way to get hold of me. I'm on Instagram a lot.
And I do love your earrings, by the way. They're fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah, if they go missing, you know where to look for them.
They just make you feel happy. Beautiful color.
I'll make sure I don't wear them when we're having coffee, Janetta.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here. And seriously, do come back and visit with us again.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, ladies, for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Janetta, For people who want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and who should contact you?
Yes. So anybody who would like to know how to deal with that, you know how during the day you've got a big challenge that you're dealing with, and you're going around saying, "Ah, this is so overwhelming, but I'll take this step and I'll do that. And then I'll say this to that person and go to the other person and take that action." And you have this logical plan in place that looks like you might be able to cope with whatever it is that's too much to deal with. And then you go to bed at night, and that 3 o'clock in the morning time where you go, and your emotions are not actually agreeing with what your thought process has processed. So your logical mind and your feeling emotions are a loggerhead. Most of the time we're like that until we get the skills to create new internal conversations where our thoughts and our feelings may be opposing, but are able to recognize each other and see where there is a synergy, not just opposition. And that's what the epiphany process enables us to do, is to start new internal dialogue rather than trying to change the rest of the world and other people's dialogue. And the moment you change your internal dialogue, then you find that the world around you and people's conversations soften as well by default. Often I have a client who goes da-da-da-da about this person, and I really don't enjoy them. And then they work on themselves. And the next time they meet them, the other person starts the conversation with a softness they've never had, or an understanding. And they go, but they didn't know I'd worked on this. So we're not separate, we're all interconnected. And when we change our internal conversation, our conversations with others and what's happening around us shifts with us as well. So for anybody who'd like to know those new internal conversations, the epiphany process is a wonderful way to start working internally on yourself. So that's www.theepiphanyprocess.com. You get a lot of information from there, and you can contact me personally there. And also worldjennysday.com has a lot of information as well that's part of the Epiphany and greater. So, and of course on social media, Facebook is Janetta Barry and the Epiphany Process, a lot on Instagram as well, and LinkedIn and Twitter.
Thank you, Janetta. I appreciate that. And it's been wonderful seeing you. And I'll look forward to chatting with you backstage right after the show.
Wonderful. See you next
All
week.
Right. See you next week. Bye. We have 6 more shows coming up today. Coming up next is the United Kingdom News and Culture, and we'll be joined, of course, by our special correspondents over in the UK, Ian Pelham-Turner and Helena Shard. Following that is fashion, travel, and fitness. After that is the Business Talk Show. And after that, we have 3 Talking Heads shows, which Talking Heads are our expert presenters from around the world who have their own show for 30 minutes and teach us a lesson to make us better personally and or professionally. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you so much. We do appreciate it. We have about 20 live broadcasts every week. And if you would like to watch any of our shows, you can watch them in many places, but I recommend 2. One is on our website, usaglobaltv.com. You can find the show of your likings and go right to that, and then you can watch the shows there. You can also watch them on our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV. All right, just a couple of quick announcements. In case you are not aware, in addition to my running this platform, I'm also a certified life and career coach. I'm a certified meditation teacher and a certified fitness instructor. And in addition, I teach people how to listen. If you would like to learn how to listen at an elevated level so that you can have inner peace and what I truly believe is part of a world peace movement, please go over to my other website, which is drjacqueline.com, and you can join our listening community there. You can also take courses on how to listen. And then finally, my next book is coming out, Adversity to Awesome. I have the first chapter in this book about something that happened to me when I was much younger and really had a major impact on me. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can pre-order over on Amazon. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jacqueline Kerbeck, Dr. Jacqueline, USA Global TV, and you can hear an excerpt of me reading from the first chapter. All right, they're all the messages I have for today. Thank you again for being here. Thank you, Janetta. Thank you, Shalini. Thank you to each and every one of you for watching our programs, for telling other people about it, and for being part of the USA Global TV family. We'll see you again shortly.